Okay, without further ado, please welcome Jim Kelly, our guest speaker of the Beer Summit.
Thank you very much.
St. Thomas.
Really,
My gosh.
yeah, wow.
I went to Mac.
Oh, is that down the road? That's right. So, thanks, Representative Ward. Really appreciate the last time we got together. Boy, this is a while. Was at Kona Brewing, and you had asked for a demonstration on our drones.
Oh, the drones.
Remember?
That's right.
We flew the drones around, and there
the
was
road.
beer. I remember that.
Yes.
So that's okay. We'll do without the refreshments this time. So. Thanks for asking me to come over, because I know you folks have a lot on your minds probably from the last few weeks, and that's good, and that's why I really want you to know that I'm here to answer. Throw whatever question you want at me. I'll do my best to answer it. I won't hide behind anything. I guess I'll start out by just talking about the outages that you've had recently, and it isn't just the last couple weeks. Hawaii Kai has outages. It's one of the areas that we're really focused on improving, but I'm going to tell you two of the reasons. I want to explain when you have outages out here, why they're caused and why they're frankly more of an issue out here than they are in some other areas. And if it makes you feel any better, we have like 3 vice presidents of the company that live out here too. So it's not just because...
And Jim, the head of the PUC lives in Hawaii Kai also.
Yeah, that's right. So we have a lot of important people in the 96825,
Yes.
and so we hear about it when the power is out. So a couple of things I'll talk about.
Do they have emergency generators?
No, there are no emergency at their houses?
Yeah.
No, they're like everybody else. The power is out, they got the candles out and the flashlights, and that's it. So the first thing, I brought a visual aid, and you guys can pass this around if you want to, but it is really one of the most important things to understand about how electricity gets delivered over here. When the system was set up on Oahu, over 100 years ago, obviously, so that's long before anybody envisioned people living out here, and the way that it was set up is not the way we would set it up today. We have a really strong vulnerability with the way we deliver electricity over the ko'olaus to the windward side of the island, and also over here. From the power plants, which there's power plants are out on the west side. There's the Kai power plant when you come around the corner there, and then there's also the Waiau power plant at Pearl Harbor, which is, you see the Santa Claus and the reindeer at Christmas time up there. And then there is now there's power plants out at Campbell Industrial Park. That's where H-Power is. There's independent power producers we buy electricity from out there. So they're scattered all over, but when it comes to delivering electricity over here, it basically comes over transmission lines that run over the ko'olaus and then come down through Waimanalo and then come over this way. If we were building it today, it would be a straight shot, probably through town, coming out, coming out from town, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But so the power goes out here. A lot of times it's because of one particular area, and it's kind of hard to see, and I wish this was bigger, but there's the transmission lines, you want to hold that. Transmission lines come over the ko'olaus right there. So the big blue lines are the transmission lines, and they come over and they shoot over the mountains, and then they drop down here, and you'll see right here, they kind of run along the bottom of the mountains. They run through Waimanalo, right along the bottom of the mountains. And so here they're running along here, and then they come over like Kamehameha Ridge, and you can see where they come over from Waimanalo side down into Hawaii Kai. Now these are transmission lines. These are the big high voltage lines. These are what we call sub-transmission lines, so it's lower voltage. It's not the big, so all of these are smaller sub-transmission lines, and that's what powers Hawaii Kai and frankly most of East Honolulu.
What are the voltages?
It's 138 kilovolts is the high voltage, and then the sub-transmission, the ones that you see coming down into Hawaii Kai, are 48 kilovolts.
Which are the ones that started the fire in Maui?
Oh, you're getting a little
We'll get to Maui in a few minutes.
get a little bit. The point is, we're at the end of the line, guys.
Yeah,
we're at
and
the end of
so
the line.
right along here, is where they come over the mountain, where they come over the hill to come over to Hawaii Kai, and along this stretch of Waimanalo there, it's very heavily wooded. It's lots of vegetation, lots of trees, and it's very hard for us actually to access. So whenever there's an outage, our guys have to go over there and try to figure out where it is. There's a lot of walking on foot. They have to use helicopter. Again, if we were building this today, we wouldn't build it this way. But we're also held back by the fact that we can't clear trees and vegetation very far. Like if you see on the mainland, you see transmission lines, they have these big open corridors. We don't have that in Hawaii because we don't want to.
The environment.
Yes, we want to make things look nice, and so it's the transmission corridors are very narrow here. So it's very easy for a tree to fall down or a branch to fall down, and it takes a while for our guys usually to find where that is and then fix it. So
Are these on poles strung overhead?
yeah, these are on poles, and if you
Why
want,
can't they be buried?
because it would cost billions of dollars.
Can you guys hear in the back?
Yep. So
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to say that it's impossible and that would never happen. Yeah.
Did you know that before 1900, it was just grass, hilly grass, hardly any trees. All these trees are imported from wherever around the world. They're not something that
I didn't know you were that old, Rob.
I am. Cut down the trees.
there.
You cut down the trees, and it'll be like it was before.
No, I know. When they built these lines, there's a lot, when you look at old pictures, there's nothing there. It's absolutely barren. And so over the last 80, 90, 70 years, I mean, and especially since Hawaii Kai was developed, all this stuff has grown over. And so I'm just telling you, that's the number one reason why there's outages over here, and they affect everybody. Now, we also have outages out here that affect neighborhoods a lot. And the good thing about underground is what? You don't have to see it, you don't have to look at it, it looks nice, right? So when Henry Kaiser developed Hawaii Kai, they specified everything was going to be underground. So that's great. But everybody knows, when was Hawaii Kai started? Like
61, 2,
yeah,
3, 4.
like about when I was started. So yeah, 63, 64 years ago. So a lot of that is called what we call, and it's all around here. Back then, up through the early 80s, it's called direct bury. They basically just dropped the electric lines in the dirt and covered them over and put sidewalk over it, and that's your underground electricity. Today they put it in a what we call a duct, and it's a lot, it's not exposed to the elements the way. But so all through Hawaii Kai, we have that direct buried cable, and over 60 plus years, it gets, you know, it gets wet, it gets, stuff gets into it, and the good thing about overhead is when our guys go out, they can see what's wrong. Hey, there's a line down, there's a broken cross arm, we can get that fixed, get a guy up in the bucket, they fix it. If it's underground, they got to hunt around for it. They got to test, okay, we think it might be on this end of the circuit, so they got to look around for it. It takes longer to find. Then they got to get under there in those little handholds you see on the sidewalk, and they got to try to fix it that way. So it usually takes a bit longer to fix. So right now, and even just down the street here in Hawaiian, starting next week, we've got a long-term plan for replacing all of that direct buried cable with new cable, put in ducts, so it should last another 50 years with less trouble. But you know, it's going to take a while to hit every neighborhood in Hawaii Kai. We've been working on it for a while, but those are the two primary reasons when you have outages here why Hawaii Kai is more susceptible than other areas. And yeah.
You know that now. Well, how do we stop it? Like the stoplights are gathering cars lined up for miles. Surprise, surprise. You know, I mean, you know what's making the problem. What are you going to do about it?
Well, like, we're working on it every single day. We're working on this. What we're trying to do is, over time, we want to cut back all of that vegetation there. We want to, you know, replace any kind of, and today we just put out a news release today. We got a good piece of money from the federal government that is matched by your money as customers, and it's only going to cost you, wait for it, about 17 cents a month more on your electric bill.
You're kidding.
We got $190 million grid resilience package that we got approved by the Public Utilities Commission. We got half of that paid for by the feds. Whether or not you like Joe Biden, he put his stamp on it, and so we got that Infrastructure and Jobs Act money to help us. When one of the things we're going to be doing, it's going to help with wildfire safety. It's also going to be replacing old poles and old equipment. And I'm not telling you that's just the down payment. It's going to cost a lot of money over time, but that's a start.
Oh, 17 cents grows then.
Yeah, no, it's going to be 17 cents for 5 years. But then
You heard it
after
today
that,
first time.
yeah,
17 cents.
17 cents. So, but anyway, you can pass this around if you
Okay.
want to. Just,
Anybody have a?
yep,
I have a question.
yeah,
So the Waimanalo site,
Yeah.
that is, heavily vegetated.
yeah.
Ultimately, you're going to bring down the vegetation because you had said that the corridors here in Hawaii are more narrow.
Yes.
But back in that area, is it possible not to maintain that and to bring it down?
Well, we do the best we can, but we spend $20 million a year just on what we call vegetation management, or you spend it. It's in the rates. And that doesn't even come close to catching up. You know how things grow in Hawaii. So we have a cycle. Everything comes around every couple of years. We go back and start over again, but it's expensive, and it's frankly something that is, yeah.
We had 2
Any
hours
map seekers?
last month.
Yes.
The first
No one
was
needs to see a map.
short one.
You got enough detail.
That was
Thanks for coming
second
in.
one
You
was
guys
a
come
much
sit down.
longer one. My question is, were they because a tree fell or something? And is there any way to, if you're doing what they call
Yeah, that's why I said, can you guys hear it? I saw it. Oh, okay, okay.
Out in like
Yes.
2 minutes, get ready, shut this, shut that, otherwise you're in the middle of something and there's.
Yep. So I'm going to talk about, I'm glad you asked that question. Let's talk about,
We don't have the question being heard in the rear.
okay,
and we need to project it.
All right, the question is about the rolling blackouts that we had, that you guys got those too, right? Last couple of weeks ago. And then you had also had a shorter outage before that. So let's use that to talk about the rolling blackouts for a minute. So that was something that we haven't done since 2015. So it's a pretty rare event where we have to do that on Oahu. And it basically is done when we don't have sufficient power generation to meet the demand of that moment, that there's more demand than we can supply. And so we have to basically then start cutting people out of the system and reducing the load until we can get those generators back up and meet all of the demand. And I don't know, I'm not going to get into all the whys about why that particular day happened, but rolling blackouts are the last thing that we want to do. And you've written a lot about the coal plant, and you've had a lot of comments about the transition to renewable energy. I'll just tell the group here, we're right in the middle of this transition right now, from old power plants that should have been probably retired a long time ago, but that we were expecting that we're going to have new facilities online. I think we're several years behind where we wanted to be, and so the transition is a little
me add a
more
footnote.
rough. Yeah.
I don't blame HECO entirely, but I blame the politicians who pushed them farther than the capacity of the infrastructure and of those that were going to come online that didn't come online. So the politicians are greatly responsible for this. And when you guys got to drive an EV and you say, where's my power? It's the same thing, because we're saying EV by 2035, 2040. If you're in California, it's 2030. So be mindful that some of these political goals don't match up with infrastructure capacity. Big, huge difference. And I also want to admit that I did say Hawaii is not a third world country because we've never had rolling brownouts, blackouts. But for the A&E, there's 2 of us who spoke on the floor. Don't shut it down, just idle it and keep it as a backup, guys. Now it's rusting to all get
You're
out.
talking about the coal plant?
The A&E, which was the cheapest supply that we had for
The coal plant.
the coal plant,
Yeah.
A&E coal plant.
But
Yeah.
they stopped that shipment in
They
6
shut it
months ago.
down, but my point was, if it would have, Jim, if it would have been kept as an auxiliary, hey, when you need the baby, click it in. Right now, we're gonna get more brownouts, right?
No, we're
Oh,
not. We're
okay.
not.
Oh, okay, back to you.
Yeah.
What do you use now for power?
We use
oil and gas?
diesel, and so that runs in most of the conventional generation that we have.
Gas? Natural gas?
No natural gas.
Why?
In 2015,
It's a clean-
Governor Ige said that we would not be importing liquefied natural gas to
So
run
why
power
do we,
plants.
the politicians make
There
such
you go.
important decisions?
There you go. It's politicians are doing it,
Why?
not these
People
guys.
vote for
Why?
the same people over and over
Yeah.
again.
That's a better way.
Can you guys hear in the back? Okay, we want to make sure
No
that
natural
everybody,
gas. That's
we've run out of
the cleanest
electricity
fuel
for the
there is.
microphones. Okay, now the question in the middle, in the
Yes,
back.
yes.
Just raise your hand.
Oh, terrible.
Right there.
I just wanted to know who was responsible for closing down the coal plant.
All right. Well, here it's there's a little bit of story behind it. So that coal plant opened up in 1992. So we had a 30-year contract with the coal plant to sell us electricity. 30-year contract. By about 2010, so with about 12 years left on the contract, we knew pretty much, given all the concerns about climate change and the fact that coal was getting more expensive, and that we were probably going to have to switch that out, that we were not going to extend that contract, so that it was going to close in 2022. And so there was a contract in place, and then the legislature made it an imperative by then outlawing any further use of coal.
No renewals is what it was.
After 2020. So it wasn't like we were planning. I mean, I want to take responsibility for this. It was not like it was running and then the politicians shut it down. We had a contract with AES, and frankly, AES said we're out of this business at the end of 2022. So they're not putting money into the plant. They're, it was an expectation that they had as well.
Jim, is it still revivable, or is
No,
it
it's
rusting?
taken
and
apart.
It's
Yes,
taken apart
yes,
already?
yeah.
Oh my God.
That shipped to China already?
No, I think they just took it apart. I mean, there's not much. Yeah. So, go ahead.
Loudly.
On that map, you showed the dark lines, and we're at the end of the line.
Right.
Okay. What's the solution now? Like, because you said several times, if we were to do it today, we would do it differently. Is that being proposed, like, okay, we know we have this problem, we need to do this now?
Do you remember, those of you who's been around since the 90s? All right. Do you remember a controversy that was not 1890s? Then you would be around for the founding of Hawaiian Electric, 1891. That's yeah. So, do you remember something that was on the front page of the paper for years? Court cases, fights over something called Wa'ahila Ridge. Yes, putting up transmission towers on the ridge above Manoa. Okay, remember that? All right. The idea of that was to close a gap that is between what's called the Pukeli substation, which is way at the back of Pololo Valley. That's connected to the transmission lines that go over the ko'olaus and like I was describing. And then there's a substation right by Kaimuki High School. There's a gap there. And so this transmission line was going to close the gap so that if there was something on the line that goes down into Hawaii Kai, comes over the ko'olaus and goes over to Hawaii Kai, we could then send power around the other way. We could send power from town up through the Pukeli substation, and then it would come out heading east, basically, rather than heading around the corner from Waimanalo. So it would provide redundancy, which is what we always want in the electric grid business. Most circuits have a second circuit that we can switch to if something happens. In that case, there's no other way for power to get out here except over the mountain through Waimanalo and then back over again. So the Supreme Court, and there was a lot of action on it for years, decided that for a lot of different reasons that was not a good thing for Hawaiian Electric to pursue, and so that project went away. And cultural issues, viewplane issues, environmental concerns. There were people that didn't think it was needed. I really, your question's a good one. Okay, there's a problem. What are you guys doing about it? You're the electric company. You should figure it out. Well, that was the solution back then. I wish I could tell you that we've got another great idea that would close that gap between those two substations. I mean, I guess we could underground it for billions of dollars, but I don't think the ratepayers are going to want to do that. I'm going to hit this guy right there and then I'll come back. Yes, sir.
Is it more or less expensive to run an undersea cable?
Underground is really expensive. Undersea is...
You don't have to bury it. Just
Super.
that's what everybody says. Hey, you just drop it down, but nothing is ever that simple, right? Yes.
I'm wondering if we can prepare. Okay, first of all, the government never says I'm sorry. They blame it on the weather, the environmental bullshit, whatever it is. Number two, what are you going to do about having something set up so the cops can push the traffic, make it move, and all that kind of stuff? Because this can happen, it will happen more and more. What are you going to do about it?
You guys hear the question?
Yeah, the question is, what are we going to do about it when you have an outage out here and you got a big traffic jam down at Keoholi there, the lights are out, it's a mess. How do we get around that?
No
Drive
cops.
very, very carefully.
Drive very carefully, that's one idea, that's good. We've got to work closely with the fire department, the police department, to figure out how we can either look for opportunities for they're called, it's all about resilience today, whether that's a generator maybe that could run on solar, it could run on biofuels, maybe something like that could be used. But, it is one of the things that is a hard thing about living on an island is we're it. There's nobody to call for when we talk about the rolling blackouts. They don't have those often on the mainland, because if a utility in Nebraska is running short on power, if they have a power plant that goes down, they can bring it in from Kansas. They can bring it in from someplace else.
But can you notify us?
Can I notify you when it's going to happen? Yeah. We tried. I guess we didn't do a very good job. Oh, sorry.
We understand if it's a tree falling, but if you're going to do it because
and we know it's going to happen, yes. I know that. We didn't do that very well.
Imagine you were in Maui and your house was burning or your neighbor's house, and they didn't even let you know that.
Yeah,
That was really bad. Okay, we got Peter, and then we're going to come back and we're going to get Elizabeth. Peter, go ahead.
I had a quick. Actually, I had two questions. So I learned you started out in 1891.
Yes, not me personally, but the company. Yes.
I was wondering where the Iolani Palace got their power from when they first turned on
We
electric
had
light bulbs.
First in the nation.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have the battery bonus program.
Yes.
I don't know how many people have that here.
Right.
It answers some of my needs. It goes on when power goes out, which has happened a few times. How's that working for Heckle, from a Heckle perspective? And then does it get tied at all to the new flex plan you have where you're trying to get customers to shift into the afternoon periods versus powering at night?
That shift and save the rate. Is anybody on that? Did anybody get picked for that?
What is it?
It's called shift and save. It's you asking a question or are you on shift and save? All right, so you know how this is supposed to work. So it's a lot cheaper to generate electricity during the day with all the solar and the wind and all that than it is at night when it's almost exclusively running diesel through power plants. So it's much more expensive. So this is giving people an incentive to do more stuff during the day. Like if you could dry your clothes during the day on the weekend maybe, or do your laundry or your heavy cooking during the day, you're actually going to save some money. If you do it during the peak period, which is the peak use of electricity, that's when it's most expensive for us to generate it, and that's when we're actually creating kind of a disincentive by raising the rate during that.
Don't you take from the Tesla battery walls? Don't you have the right to take as much and whenever you want?
Yes, if you're in the battery bonus, you basically get paid an incentive from us to let us pull it out of your battery, or you're basically saying between 6 and 8, I'm going to be running my battery and I'm not going to use any of your electricity. So that's the incentive you get paid. Yes?
To narrow that question down a little bit, how is HECO feeling about that program? How is it working for HECO?
It actually is helpful. I mean, when we run short at nighttime, when again it's peak use, if we have a lot of people that we can call on and pull it out of their battery, or we know that they're not going to be asking us for any electricity, that's actually really helpful. And the more and more and more people that we can do that with, that's good. That's good for us.
They like it because you're responsible for the maintenance of keeping your battery not go.
Yes, that's another, but you get paid, so you know it's not. Yes, ma'am. Between you, yeah.
I understand it was Buffalo, there's a great big, Athens,
Then they must all do all the solar guys.
and that just went into effect in December.
Yes.
And is that the reason we had these rollouts?
No. Actually, I'm glad you asked that question. It's called Kapolei Energy Storage. It's one of the largest batteries in the world, and that project.
I thought it was several.
Well, it's a bunch of boxes, but it's all tied together. So it enables us. So that's one of these projects that was supposed to be online like in 2020, and yeah, regulatory delays, permitting issues, construction issues, pandemic. So I don't want to make excuses, but I'm just saying that was the plan. Was it was supposed to be in line a lot faster. So let me just tell how it.
We got some for your second time. Hold on.
Let me just. How this battery works. When we had the rolling blackouts, it actually should have helped us out. But you'll remember that day was very dark. It was very rainy. A lot of cloud cover. There was no wind. So those North Shore wind farms, zero. We got nothing from them. So you got a day that starts out. The battery gets charged during the day because we have all this solar from guys like you. Anybody's got solar on their roof. We got more than we can use.
How many guys got solar on your roof? Let me see your hands.
That's great.
Okay, that's
good. Great. We really like that. So during the day, that solar goes into the battery, so we can use it at night. I mean, that's how it's supposed to work. And some of those big solar farms we have too, they have batteries attached. So during the day, it's powering up the battery. That day, there was no sunshine at all. It was rainy and dark, and we can charge the battery with the grid. We can run our power plants to charge it up. But that day we had a couple of power plants that went down. They're old, and so they went down.
So you took it out on Hawaii Kai?
So we took it out on Hawaii Kai, exactly. No, we took it out on everybody.
Joking.
Yes. Yep. Who else? You're picking the question.
Elizabeth, and then we have on the left, and then we come back to the question number 4.
I'm working with other folks in the area about developing a resiliency hub.
Yes, that's great.
If a resiliency hub occurs, should HECO be a part of it as a backup entity location to help fulfill whenever there's a need? Is that something HECO's?
Yes, no. Hawaiian Electric is actually working on getting federal money for what they call resilience hubs. That would basically.
Do you guys know in the back what you just asked?
Yeah, it's she's talking about setting up a what's called a resilience hub here in Hawaii Kai, and asking if that's something that we would support and we would work with. And the answer is, well, it's basically a place that gets set up in the event of some, a hurricane or there's some sort of a disaster, so that people know where they can go, and it's powered by a generator. Maybe it's solar, maybe it's a traditional generator. Maybe a lot of times it's like a police station or a fire station or someplace where people could go in the event of an emergency, like a long duration. Wow, the power is going to be out for a week because we just had a Category 4 hurricane. So there's a place people can go. They can get ice. They can charge up their phone. They got cell phone towers. They're all set up there. You can get food. You can get information about what's going on. Yeah, medical. So it's all set so people have a place in their neighborhood where they can go. And so we're trying to get one set up on the windward side. There's actually one now in progress for Lahaina that we're trying to get the feds involved with that. They're expensive. I mean, it's not like cheap though. It's they take something. But look it up online when you get a chance. Resilience hubs. They're I think they're really a great thing, especially for Hawaii, because
We
it
look
gives
forward to
people-
that progressing and
Yes,
keeping us
yeah,
posted.
we're very, very supportive
Jim,
of that.
the next question is over
Yeah.
by the gymnasium.
Yes, hi.
It doesn't sound like we have any short-term or relatively near-term solutions for Hawaii. What about, I mean, you read about these things, and I'm hardly an expert in it, these microgrids, you know, where Hawaii Kai doesn't become dependent on clearing trees out or waiting for the billion-dollar grant from the, you know, U.S. government. Has there been any thought about that?
Well, people talk a lot of that. He had a question about microgrids, because I'm sure that a lot of people have heard about microgrids, and it's basically setting up a geographic area that is then pretty much can generate its own electricity and is its own thing and doesn't require being connected to the grid or anything like that. I think with microgrids, you got to keep in mind that there needs to be some generation source. There needs to be, we haven't figured out yet how to generate electricity 24/7 other than running an engine to make electricity. You know, using, you know, there's geothermal, there's other different kinds, but so there has to be a power source to run that microgrid. Even if everybody has rooftop solar and everybody has a battery, that still is probably not going to be enough to meet all the needs of everybody on that microgrid. But I think the technology is advancing, so the batteries are getting better, solar panels are getting more efficient, and I think that's absolutely something that is going to get looked at in the future. It's not in the near future, though.
Jim, let me add a footnote
Yeah.
to that, because I did an op-ed numbers of years ago. I said in a metaphorical way, what the mainframe, you remember the IBM mainframes that were kind of as big as this tent? And now they're as small as your cell phone or as your desktop computer. I see the electrical evolution, if you will, where HECO supplements us when we, in our own independent solar, wind, osmosis, other kinds of things that are happening, where we rely upon you to help us when we have a difficulty. Otherwise, we're and we're independent, just like you guys are independent when you use your computer or when you use your phone. You don't have to lock into anything.
That's why you want to always be hooked up to us, because in case you need us, then we're there. But if you don't need us and you can generate your own electricity, then that's great. We actually have a microgrid on Oahu. It was built in cooperation with the U.S. Army. We built a power plant up at Schofield Barracks in 2018. So it's on the Army base, and it can be Schofield Barracks and the airfield up there. It can, and Wahiawa General Hospital, it can all be islanded, meaning it can be separated from the rest of the Oahu grid in the event of an emergency. Let's say there's a hurricane, the power's down, everybody doesn't have any electricity. They can use that Schofield Barracks generator to make electricity and then just only use it for their the military base, so that if the airport was underwater, they can land planes up at Wheeler, and they have the hospital there, and so it's islanded off from everybody else. But it's available to be kind of like a resilience hub. I guess if you're in the military, you're good to go. The rest of us, no. But that's the idea, and that's exactly what you're talking about. But most of the time, you know, it's running just like everything else, and it's connected to the grid. Is this helpful at all? You guys getting something out of this? All right, good.
Mahalo, sir, for coming today. I think this is the most, we have the largest group of people.
Yeah, we're in the 50s here. Only when there was, I think, the Lieutenant Governor Green, when we were at the beer summit, he had about 100 people. But yeah, this is a great turnout. You've been a real attraction.
No, it was the beer. You told people it was free beer, Gene, and then yeah,
hot dogs and beer.
Yeah.
So my question is about communications infrastructure. None of us want to burn to death. Okay. Kalama Valley is an example, and there's examples across the island. Single egress, flammable vegetation. Okay. We're sitting ducks. So what happens when power failure occurs is the broadband connectivity dies. So this is useless. What can HECO do about that?
Some of that is outside our ability to control because it belongs to other utilities, but what we can do is we can work with those other utilities to make sure that they've got emergency generators, and there are a lot of them out there. They're just not everywhere. And so we can work with them, and that's part of the whole resilience idea, because people have got to be able to get communication in the event of some kind of an emergency. So that's got to be one of our, we talk about what are the priorities. The priority after an emergency is not putting your electricity on back at your house. The priority is to take care of, you know, obviously hospitals, wastewater. Everybody forgets about that if you don't have anything to pump that. So water pumps and communication infrastructure. Those that are top of the list.
Mahalo, sir.
Yep, thank you.
And then we're going to this one, and then Rob.
Okay.
Quick suggestion for a location for this battery. The Kiss and Ride, it hasn't been used like 5%.
Where?
Yeah, but where the homeless guys go?
Where the cats.
Or the cats.
I mean, come on.
Okay, a couple more questions. Then we're going to go to Maui questions because I've got a lot of those.
Hey, I gotta go.
Well, we've talked about like micro, right, grids, right? And we've talked about other sustaining type things or resolvency areas or whatever, solvency. What about, are there any programs that would initiate, like, to get like people in Hawaii Kai Tesla batteries or something, so or some sort of generator, so that we become self-sufficient, so that if it does shut down, and I'm not talking about just like, well, I can't have the TV on or the game on. I'm talking about people who need oxygen, or need life supporting stuff. But like, if we all like somehow had some sort of a program that everybody in this area, because it looks like a very long-term solution since we're at the end of this, thinking maybe a battery or something at every household, so it goes down, boom, Hawaii Kai's good to go for 2 days.
I want to answer that question, and then I want to talk about a couple other things that you folks should know about, kind of related to that, and then if I can do that, and then talk about Maui, because it's all kind of connected.
Please.
So there are utilities that do that they pay, especially people that have medical needs and that kind of thing, they will pay for a battery at their house. They're in California because they've had so many wildfires. I don't know how many of you heard of something called public safety power shutoff, where they basically shut the power off ahead of a weather event. And they do give people notice. They tell you in 48 hours it's possible because of the weather conditions we're going to shut off the power for a day. They do give people batteries. They have created these resilience hubs, so they're giving people options. The question comes down to, and it's a public policy issue for you and your friends, you know, that would be something that the customers, all the customers would have to pay for. And you'd have to figure out, you know, what's the cost to everyone. I mean, to me, that's a community decision and a community, you know, something that everybody would have to be part of. But I think more and more utilities are going that way, and I think that's certainly something that we'd be open to looking at as well. So let's talk about two things. Public safety power shutoff. I'm telling you, it's coming. It's not coming next week or the next month, but we're already working on it with our regulators, with HIEMA, with emergency managers, fire department, and what it is basically is, you see that there is a weather system coming in that's low humidity, high winds, dry grass, you haven't had any rain in a year. All the conditions are set, especially in certain places, for there to be some kind of a accident with the power line coming down or something else happening. So what they've done in California is, and they've gotten very good at it over the last several years, they have their own staffs of meteorologists, so they can really chart the weather better than the Weather Service does. And they can see when something's going to be happening. So we're looking at that now too, because honestly, after Maui, that was one of the questions that was asked of us. If it was windy and the Weather Service said it was going to be windy, why didn't you guys shut off the power ahead of time? And I can say that's something we've never done before. That's not what the electric company does. We usually are working to get the power back on. But given this threat that most of us didn't realize was as imminent and as dangerous as it obviously is, this is now going to be an option for us to look at to make sure that we keep people safe. And it's going to be inconvenient, and it's going to be hard, and people are not going to like it, but we are going to do it, and it's going to be done, I hope, it will be in consultation with communities. We'll communicate as best we can. We'll give people, hopefully, the tools and resources they need so they can get through it, so that we're not doing this in a way that's going to be disrupting schools and traffic lights and businesses and shutting things down for days on end. So it's a pretty blunt tool, and we don't want to use it, and we hope there's a lot of other things I'm going to talk about that we can do instead of that. Yes?
Jim, I'm going to go back to battery power again.
Yeah.
Just because that's something I've got at my home. If you do this public safety shutdown,
Yep.
and it happens in Hawaii, do I still have power off my batteries, or does that get shut down too?
It depends on how you're set up. I think you should be good. And again, this will be something that will probably encourage people to put a battery in their house.
What
But
if it gets drained?
it's going to get it's not going to get drained by us. We would not drain it during that kind of a situation. But it isn't going to last forever. I mean, you know, if this shutoff is going to last for a day or a couple of days, hopefully not, you're probably going to use it up before then. So I want to just, yeah, go ahead.
We kind of have a situation kind of like you're describing in a way, because we have T-Mobile antennas on our roofs. The last power outage, they went off too. So we had no mobile phone or cell phone signal, anyone who had T-Mobile. And we can't we have solar all over the roof. We cannot, and I'm not saying it's Eco's fault, but that cannot remain active during a power outage, because Eco's worried about power flowing back into their network and electrocuting a worker who's trying to fix the problem. So otherwise we could have the solar system. We have 450 kilowatts up there. You know, it could power a lot of cell phone towers.
Do you have battery?
Huh?
Do you have battery?
No, we're looking at a battery, but we're talking about $350,000 for a battery.
Yeah, we're not going to pay for that, just so you know. That's on you.
And then I'm not saying this is not individual apartments. This is just our emergency circuit. The diesel generator runs its lighting, emergency lighting. It's the gates open and close when your fob goes on, the doors open and close, that sort of stuff. It's not individual apartments. The battery size you're going to need to power anything for very long is going to be incredibly expensive and incredibly large. So that's not yet.
No, I think that's really a good point, and it is.
Emergency
Yeah.
circuit in your house and only is powered certain
Thank you,
things.
bro.
You can't have the whole house powered.
Yep.
You just don't have the storage for it.
Yep, no, that's a really good point. If it's okay, I want to talk about something else related to wildfires, then you can ask me any question you want about Maui. So, when you had your outage, I think it was the traffic outage, the Friday afternoon one. So, one of the things that we're doing, because safety is top of the list in terms of what we care about, I don't want to say, I just say that is more of a priority to us than getting the lights back on these days, to make sure everybody is safe. So what we've done on Oahu and the other islands is we've set up our grid in areas where there is heightened wildfire risk. So areas where there's drought, a lot of vegetation, you can probably, there's maps at the state, and all this is on our website. If you want to look at this when I'm done talking, feel free. But we've set up our system so it's much more sensitive to disruptions. Before August 8th, before Maui, if something interfered with a power line, a tree branch falls on it, the circuit would open momentarily. You know how you get those blinks at home? Yeah. Just enough to turn off the clock, right? And you got to reset it. So you get the blink because the circuit's open for a couple of seconds. Our system then would automatically reclose it because the system is thinking, okay, that branch fell, now it's probably down on the ground now, so we're going to put the power back on. And it would do that twice. what we've done is we've set up the system so it doesn't do that. We call it blocking reclosing. It will not do that. Now, if something interferes on the system, if that branch falls on that line, the power is going to go out and it's going to stay out.
Is that what happened in Kailua?
Yes. And so until we can get guys over there to look and see, visually look on the line and make sure there's nothing broken, there's not a line down, there's not a tree hanging on it, there's not anything that could potentially cause a fire. And then they're going to call downtown and say, okay, it's okay to turn it back on. I went out there and looked, it's okay. But that takes time. And if it happens at night, we're not sending guys out in the middle of the night to look for that. So it's going to be overnight. So outage that might have just been a few minutes could potentially be like it was, I think, about 3 hours on Friday. Because we even sent a helicopter up, because it was in that area that I was talking about along the base of the mountain there. That's where there was a, I think I heard that tree branch actually fell and was kind of stuck against the line. And so the helicopter went out, our guys went out on foot. And so the system will not just automatically go back on until we're sure that it's safe. That's part of what we call our wildfire safety program, and I want everybody to know about it. We put out news releases and we've done interviews on it, but I'm not sure most people still know about it. That's also on our website. It means that until we get, and it isn't going to be like this forever. Part of this money we got from the feds, part of what we're investing in is a lot of new technology that basically enables us to look on the system from downtown and see what's going on, so we don't have to send a guy physically out there. We can see if there's a problem, and we can see if, okay, there's nothing going on, we can reclose that circuit. A lot more sensors, a lot more cameras, a lot more visibility into the system itself, rather than having to physically have people out looking at things. So over time, that's going to close the gap on that time that it takes to restore everybody.
When did that start?
That started in we started doing it in September, and I think we finished.
Is Hawaii Kai?
Yes, that part of Hawaii Kai is that part along the bottom of the mountain there. Yeah.
What about here?
Right here, no, because there's.
Because I looked at your map on the website. There's color coded, and there's like red and there's yellow, but I couldn't tell what color.
Well, because most of it's underground, so there isn't an issue the way that there is with above ground utilities. So right here, this would not be part.
Okay, so with underground, we would not be subject to.
No, but if the main transmission line that's powering all the underground is out, then you're not going to have any electricity.
Jim, way in the back.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So that started after the Maui disaster, partly because of that, to make it more safe for everybody.
It's fully because of that.
And then related to that, and then also the earlier gentleman asked about, a lot of Hawaii Kai is arid, just like Lahaina and dead-end valley roads and stuff. And combining that with what you said about the Schofield Army islanding and microgrid that's independent when there is an emergency, is there any prospect or potential for that kind of a microgrid islanding to kick in if there's a, power outage here because of fire safety or whatever? And then one more add-on is, what proportion of the power outages in Hawaii Kai in the recent couple weeks, as well as what proportion of overall power outages comes from things like the tree branch or the Waiau, generator versus.
I hate to tell you, you guys had the trifecta in January. You had the tree branches along last Friday. You had the rolling blackouts that Monday, and then you also, I think, just had just kind of the standard underground. There were some areas that had that go out as well. So I think you're good for the year now. You shouldn't have any more. So
11 months there.
Yeah. Microgrid in Schofield Army Barracks, what fuel do they use? Because, wind and solar and these renewables, not only are they not constant, but they're also much more expensive for the ratepayers, and it's projected to be that way for, quite a long time. So is there a cheaper backup kind of fuel or more of that on the overall grid that can help ratepayers' rates to, because it's getting really expensive.
I know it is. I know it is. And
but what does Schofield use?
They use biofuels, which are a mix of, which is even more expensive than plain old diesel.
Can there be backup with just, if we start using our nation's considerable oil reserves and stuff, because we have actually more oil than Saudi Arabia and everything, and that's what kind of caused inflation over the last.
He claimed he was not a politician.
No, but I mean, is there a cheaper source that we could also have as a backup alongside, just to stabilize prices?
I mean, in terms of a liquid fuel that would be burned in a conventional power plant, honestly, we are in the process of building over the next 10 years. So Waiau, the power plant there at Pearl Harbor, we're going to replace all the units in there, which go back to literally, the lights are on tonight because of a steam generator that was built in 1947.
Wow.
We run the oldest power plants, some of the oldest power plants in the country. But thank goodness for our good IBEW handymen. They keep that stuff running, and they do a great job
Steam
of it.
fitters.
Yep,
Hey.
that's right. Welders, steam fitters, yep.
Just an FYI, we have a bill in the legislature to use nuclear power for generation. Now, whether it gets a hearing is another issue. Whether you call in and say, look, we want to get a hearing of the bill is another issue. And I don't know what HECO's position is, but that was one of the things that were considered. It's the cheapest, some say the safest. 80% of France is all nuclear. Now, I want to fast forward to Maui, because what was the shocker after the fire was the city, or the county of Maui said, HECO, we're going to sue you, and then you turned. Can you give an update without being too proprietary, or?
Yes.
We have some lawyers here.
Yeah,
well, I know you don't.
and I
you
think we
can't
have
say
at least
something.
one shareholder, right? So, yeah, couple, all right. No, I can talk about this because most of this is out in the public. So, yeah, there's about 100 lawsuits right now pending against Hawaiian Electric, or our parent company, HEI. Those lawsuits are going to, until those lawsuits are resolved, and I don't know if you've heard, the governor has come up with a plan that we're contributing to that will offer settlements to the families of those who lost people in the fire. And this is like the first group. So this is $1.5 million per family. And the idea is this gives them an option. They can still sue, they can continue with the lawsuit, but at least you don't know how that's going to turn out. It could be 3 or 4 years. You got to hire a lawyer. This would give them a way to start over right now. So that's going to start being available to people on March 1st. That's just for people who lost a family member or suffered a serious personal injury themselves. The second phase is the property damage. And unfortunately, that's more money than the loss of life. That's potentially, it's been said between a couple billion and maybe $5 billion worth of damage. And right now there's people working on trying to come up with a solution for that as well. The state and we are and others are looking to see if there's a way that we can resolve that part of it as well. So that's the lawsuits. Our company is still operating except when the lights go out.
You got it.
Yep.
Let me do a follow-up, because in terms of causality, it was where the county said, your power didn't go off, therefore the fire started. And you said, no, we did shut the power off. It was your firemen who ran away because they didn't put the fire out. They said it was contained. In effect, it wasn't extinguished. Is that still kind of like what you define as going to be argued between the county and you guys, or?
Well, right now there's two.
Because the problem is, FEMA has not issued its report. The Attorney General has not issued its report, and we don't know what was the cause and then what we should do in the legislature to prevent this from happening in the future. So we're kind of hanging in the midst of all these suits.
Yes, no, so there has been no official determination made about the cause of the fire. We have said that there was a fire in the morning of August 8th and that we caused that. We had a line come down, you've probably seen the video, it started a fire. Fire department came, they were there for several hours. They said that it was contained, and the fire chief later said it was extinguished. Later that afternoon, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, fire starts in the same area generally. So it's not been determined whether that's a remnants of the morning fire or if that was a completely separate event. And so that's obviously one of the things that so there's 2 investigations. One is being done by the State Attorney General's office, and I think that mainly focuses on the government response and what the county did. And there's another one that is being done by the Maui County Fire Department, which is being, basically it's being run by the federal ATF. They're investigating the actual cause of the fire and what happened. So I don't know, we've heard could be a year, could be more than a year. You know, it's complicated stuff to figure out. And
hopefully we will know at some point,
yes.
because we've got to learn. We can't reinvent the wheel on these things.
ATF and why are they leading that?
Because they have the expertise. It's federal alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. These are guys that actually do this for a living. They were brought in because the Maui Fire Department, there's nobody in the state that has the expertise to investigate the cause of a massive fire like this.
Gentleman on the left here.
Yep.
One question I have is, will HECO remain solvent should it become HECO's blame?
Heads up, shareholders.
So, so like San Francisco, PG&E had San Bruno explode. They had Paradise Valley go away. It was decimated. And because of that, they became insolvent and had to restructure.
We're planning to be here. Right now, I'll be honest with you folks, our credit rating was downgraded after the fires because the people who would invest in our company, they don't know the outcome of these lawsuits. They don't know if we're going to be held responsible for all of it or none of it. So you know how investors are, you know how when it comes to risk, they're standing back. So right now our credit rating doesn't exist. So we can't borrow money, we can't use commercial paper the way we usually do. We're a very infrastructure heavy business. We need capital to come in to help pay for all of this stuff. And right now we're going on what we had in the bank, and we're doing okay for right now, but several pieces of legislation are really important to getting us back a better credit rating, getting investors confidence that if there's a future event, that there's rules in place. We're all for, there's several bills that are basically laying out the Public Utilities Commission is going to develop a set of rules that utilities have to follow to keep everybody safe. And we are 100% behind those. Right now there's no rules. So if there's rules and we follow them and the PUC says, hey, you guys did what we told you to do, investors are going to feel like, okay, all right. It's also going to make it harder in the future for somebody to sue us in the event, God forbid, of another fire. Because it's like, no, these guys did exactly what they were told to do. And these are all modeled on California. All this legislation is modeled on California, what's worked there. So I'm hopeful that over the course of the next year, as these lawsuits hopefully get settled, as we bring some kind of stability to the situation, that we can start being in a position where we could borrow money again to do some of the work that we need to do. And I hope you folks will consider, I can't stand here and tell you what it's going to cost. I think we're very conscious of any impact on people's bills because they're high already.
Yeah, almost the highest in the nation.
It is the highest in the nation.
It is the highest in the nation.
That's not a point of pride. Yeah, so one of the bills we have is something called securitization. It would enable us, which we can't do right now, to take a little part of the bill that would be dedicated, a dedicated revenue stream, basically be like collateral for someone to loan us money. They know they're going to get paid back through this revenue stream every month because people pay their bills and that'll be on there. Yep.
Yes, My friend has a solar farm in Waianae. Do you guys encourage expansion so they can sell more solar power to you? Because if she has an existing farm in Waianae, 1 acre, and would it be good for you guys to expand on a solar farm, put more panels and stuff like that?
Sure, yes. The question is, he has a friend who has a solar farm in Waianae. Would it be good for us if she expanded? Absolutely. Oahu is the toughest nut to crack, you know this, when it comes to renewable energy. Ooh. We got 1 million people on a 600 square mile island, and a lot of it is hands off, conservation land, and we don't want to be seeing solar panels and windmills every place, right? So we've got to be really creative and use what we've got and figure out different ways to generate electricity.
Here, and then Pete, and then in the back. Yes, madam.
I'm wondering, in California you see a lot of solar panels in parking lots, like schools, and it provides shade for the cars and electricity for the school. Is that something that could be implemented here?
Absolutely, and we've actually we've done the work of putting out requests for information from people that own flat surfaces, roofs, parking lots, open areas, and we team them up with developers to see, hey, maybe you guys want to get together here, this guy could build a solar farm and you could, get some money off of it. It's an expensive investment for a property owner. But I think absolutely we're going to have to look at that. We want to cover every flat space we can with solar panels.
Pete?
Thank you. Just real quickly, and lastly, I guess for me anyway.
Yeah, we're going to do a wrap up shortly.
I'll make mine short. The nuclear power stations you were talking about, that we're not talking about the same type of nuclear energy that we're all used to hearing about, the scares the wits out of it. It's a new concept. Is that going to be under a regulatory? Is HECO going to be involved in that, or is that going to be a different? I'm looking at V2 on the report.
Well, it's in the Constitution that we cannot actually have a formation or a manufacturing of nuclear energy.
Except, what would the legislature have to do to allow that to happen? You know this. 2/3 of each house would have to agree.
And right now, it's still one of those frightening, let's not go there. Even though I think it's getting more and more acceptable. Israelis have got these modular nuclear things. I mean, you can put a modular one this size and you could probably, all of Hawaii Kai, just like that.
I think it's something, and I know not everybody's for it, for sure, certainly because it's got a stigma associated with it that goes back a long ways. But if we talk about resiliency and point power in one spot that can help power Hawaii Kai, for example, that would be a wonderful way to try to go. There's little ways.
You got a lot of smart people at HECO.
Well, I think we don't want Hawaii to be a laboratory for modular nuclear, but people are doing stuff with it, and I think over the next 10 years, we will have a better idea of what it looks like, how successful it is, what it costs, and so we'll know a lot more. There's people, like you're saying, working on it right now.
Yeah.
So,
and my last question is, also, it's not just me asking it, I got to harken back to rail and the power brownouts and everything. Did the rail still run when all that was going on? And if it did run, what percentage of how did it run?
Are you saying you want the brownouts to start at the rail?
Yes.
Okay, we probably have a unanimous vote on that.
that's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that. I did not hear that it affected their operation. That is a really good question. Now, people have also asked, well, that thing must suck up a lot of electricity, and that's, Hawaiian Electric, that's great for you guys because you're selling it actually doesn't use that much. A couple of hotels in Waikiki probably uses a lot more than the rail.
That's informative.
Yeah,
Okay, the question in the back as we near wrapping up.
I'm not quite sure how to verbalize it properly. One of the other factors in Lahaina's, actually Maui's wildfire situation was the water pumping that failed during that process as well. And we talked about the island and resiliency program that Schofield has. Can you talk to our water infrastructure and how that pumping might be dependent upon HECO or separated or built up resilient?
You're in communication with Board of Water Supply?
Yeah, and I mean, our Board of Water Supply, and is it American Water that is still out here? Yeah.
Sewage,
most of those, or a lot of them, I don't want to say all of them or most of them, they have generators that kick on, like if there's a power outage like you folks have had, because they've got to be able to move the water, and they've got to, so most of them have a generator on site that can run for a while depending on how much fuel they have. But that's absolutely something that's going to have to be looked at. It can't be forgotten any more than you're talking about the the broadband infrastructure, that is top of the list. Water pumping, sewage pumping, that's one everybody always forgets about, but that's really important. All of that.
The water, just as I was reading the individual stories by from firefighters in Lahaina in particular, they said the pumps just kept running dry and the hoses lost pressure and that sort of thing. So that was seemed to be a big issue from their perspective, was they just had no water, which is why they dropped and ran, because at that point it became a preservation of life situation more than protecting property.
No, I mean, I think what's going to, from what I've seen of a lot of legislation that's been already proposed this year, I mean, this is an issue for all of us to try to solve. It's not just about Hawaiian Electric or Maui County, or we've all got to do our parts. And the firefighters have to have the resources that they need. You was talking about Kalama Valley. Absolutely. I saw something about 70% of the communities in Hawaii have one way in and one way out. That's it. I think that's something that's got to be looked at.
So don't feel bad, Hawaii guy.
Yeah, you're in with everybody else.
We're in bad shape.
Those are all things that are going to be looked at and are going to require, it's going to require money, and it's going to require people to participate and figure out how you can look up something called Firewise communities.
Firewise community here on Oahu.
Where?
Mariners Cove, Kamilanui Valley.
Hey, that's good.
Since 2018.
Very good.
And
Look it up.
It's Hawaii Wildfire Management Organization.
Yes, that's a great outfit.
You want to sign up? See Elizabeth Riley right here.
No, you can do it in your neighborhood. You can do it in wherever you live.
Okay, last call for questions before I wrap up with some comments. To Chris, to your right.
Speaking of trifecta, so number one, why didn't Public Utility Commission have rules when other places did have rules? Is there a particular, what's the root cause of not having rules? And then about water, what about hydrogen? We've heard that there's a committee, a statewide working group on hydrogen. You know, hydrogen, you can make it from hydrogen fuel from water or brackish water, and there's no pollution.
Hydrogen maybe even has more immediate promise than nuclear. There's a lot of people that are working on it. The only bummer about hydrogen, and I think it's going to get solved, is it takes a ton of electricity to make hydrogen to make electricity. So you're kind of, but it's absolutely, when I was talking about building these new units out at Waiau, they're going to be set up so they can run on any kind of a fuel in the future, even hydrogen if that becomes commercially available.
What about this as a stopgap? If there's a terrible emergency and the power goes down and you need emergency power, is there any talks with the military to be able to plug in like nuclear-powered Navy vessels in Pearl Harbor, just plug it onto the grid temporarily?
They've done that.
I think by the time that got figured out, the lights would be back on.
Is it very limited, or what's the main obstacle to that?
You can't just hook a boat up to our grid. I mean, it's going to take weeks, if not months, of engineers figuring out how it would all come together without blowing up the system. And
just ask AI; they can figure that out.
Hey, that's a good idea.
There should be a backup plan.
Be careful with AI. Be careful.
Be careful.
I'm not Elon Musk, but Musk is onto something about them getting smarter than us, and they're teaching themselves more than we're teaching ourselves. The other question there, and then we're going to wrap up over here.
Mine's kind of a, I guess, trivial question. We have a green waste issue. Obviously, with the speed at which the green materials grow around here, is burning green clippings and things like that, does not generate enough electricity to help?
Would you like to talk about the bill in the legislature that would ban the use of biomass to generate electricity?
I was thinking of Frank Fossey when he went waste to energy, the H-Power.
Yep.
Which we are doing. Everything that you put in your green bin and almost all your blue bin stuff goes up into smoke and then turns it. What part of the electrical grid is H-Power?
H-Power, it's a huge help. It's what we call firm power. It's on 24/7. It's about 68 megawatts, which is good.
What percent of your power is that?
Yeah, I think it's about 10 or 11%, which is really good. And it's pretty reliable because there's plenty of trash.
Yeah, well, we have plenty of green branches blocking Cisco equipment. That's kind of what I'm getting
Oh, that's what you're getting at? All right, okay, I get it. All right, I'll take that back.
It's so clean. I can about that.
Yep.
Yeah, but obviously we can't cut things down fast enough around here. I just ran through Camila Nui Valley right before this event, and I've seen the grass that was a problem in Lahaina is growing there out of control.
Yes.
And just within the 90 days, this stuff is taller than I am now.
Yep.
And if there's a way to, I don't know, I mean, we have,
Like I was saying, it's a community issue, though. Everybody's got to be part of it. We're not the grass cutters. We're not, you know, so everybody's got to take ownership of their property.
No, just an FYI, Kamehameha Schools has been cooperating with our office. Jillian, we've told them about Mariners Ridge and other places. In front of the post office, you remember that humongous growth of dry? They cut that down almost like a green, well, not quite like a green on a golf course, but they're very attentive because, again, the legal guys come in and say, look, you created this fire, you're going to be liable. There's a new consciousness that's come out of Maui, but the cost of Maui is going to cost us probably $5 to $6 billion. Our session is going to be Maui-centric, and it's going to be like when we did Iniki in 1992. Whatever Kauai wanted, Kauai got. And I think with what is going on in Maui, even though I don't see a Mayor Giuliani saying, you do this, you do that. I don't see the coordination yet, but it's going to come to it's going to come to pass, but it's going to happen. And it's going to happen hopefully sooner rather than later. There's a lot of people just twisting in the wind and very frightful. I'm going to wrap up after this gentleman asks his second question.
Thank you. Well, one last question. So, along the lines of the solvency, will you be protecting the previous incentive programs like NEM, electric buyback?
Yeah, those are all determined by the Public Utilities Commission. We can't change those or touch those, regardless of our financial situation. So, good to go.
Mahalo, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Are any of you aware of the environment when we first started out and what was going on and you guys were going like this? What's happened over the last hour and a half? Hiko came and calmed the winds and the rain stopped. And this is the face that we've got. Let's give him a good round of applause for that.
Hey, great questions. Thank you so much. Thank you. Really good. It's been fun.
Gene, I have
You have another question?
well, not relating to this, but that land that's been cleared off of Lunalilo Home Road. Yes.
That's Kamehameha Schools also.
What are they doing with that?
Well, there used to be a homeless area in there. And they're going to be, how would you say, facilitating, I don't know, some development, I'm not sure what kind, but they're probably going to be utilizing it by cutting it and clearing out that, I think the neighborhood board just brought that up, the big drainage. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I won't run away. Plus,
They're going to do something with that. It's a huge chunk of land. It goes all the way. Yeah. But they haven't said anything.
No problem.
No word at all. One last ceremonial issue. In most places, they give guest speakers leis. In Hawaii Kai, we present the Honorable Jim Kelly with a coconut. Sir?
That's very, very generous. Thank you. Thank you.
These came from the gentleman who wanted to ask 5 and 6 and 7 questions. Rob Burns was the donor, and he's got 2 or 3 more if you want to come and grab one. Last comments. We want to get a presentation picture.
Yep, I know. I've already been told that I can't go. So,
right. My goodness.
Hey, I did want to say, if you have more questions or you got issues.
Hey, listen up. This is where he wants to follow up with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, not that much, but a little bit. Just reach out to Gene if that's okay, and then you can connect him to me, okay? And I'd be happy to try to get back to you as best I can, okay? All right,
Jim,
for
thank
us?
you very much. Hey, we should be proud that the face of Hiko is this friendly, this informative, and this open an area for your questions, all the concern. Oh, because he's from Minnesota.
Friendly Midwesterner, that's why.
Aloha. Jim, thank you so much.
Hey, this was really great. Great group.
You're the right guy to do the right job.
You always have a nice, gracious crowd.
You're
well informed.